Chapter 3. Verse 1. God appointed various angelic roles in heaven: surveyors to map the earth and atmosphere, astronomers to track the stars, and enumerators to count and grade the inhabitants of both realms. Nurses and physicians were appointed to care for the newborn spirits, called Essenes. God also appointed builders for heavenly homes, weavers to make clothing for the Essenes, and builders of heavenly ships to transport the spirits. Each role was given officers and teachers according to their abilities. Verse 2. When these appointments were made, all the inhabitants were assigned their places and began their work. God then called the Oahspe angels responsible for guiding new spirits, saying, Verse 3. Go down to the earth and bring me the first fruits of the resurrection. Verse 4. The Oahspe asked, What do you mean by the first fruits of the resurrection? Verse 5. God explained, I mean the spirits of the dead. The Oahspe asked, Who are the spirits of the dead? Verse 6. God answered, When a person leaves their physical body, this is called death. Verse 7. The Oahspe, who had died in infancy and never experienced life on earth, asked, Who are these spirits of death? God replied, Go to my Lord Woga, and he will show you. Verse 8. The Oahspe went down to the earth, and with the help of Woga, the Lord of the earth, and the Ashar's guardian angels, they brought 500 Essenes to hoard before God's throne. God asked, Who are these? Verse 9. The Oahspe answered, These are the first fruits of the resurrection. We now understand that the physical body was just a womb, and these spirits have now been delivered. Verse 10. God said, Well done. Now feed and clothe these Essenes, for that is your task. Verse 11. The Oahspe replied, We have tried giving them all kinds of food that we subsist on, but they refuse to eat. Verse 12. God explained, You feed on ethereal food, but these Essenes need atmospherian food, just as corporeal beings require physical food. Go and fulfill this first resurrection. As you help them, so will you be helped in time. Verse 13. The Oahspe departed with the Essenes, but soon returned, saying, Verse 14. We gathered the atmosphere from trees, seeds, and plants that grow on earth, which we find beautiful and nourishing, but the Essenes will not eat it. Alarmed, we come to you for guidance. Verse 15. God replied, You know much of heaven, but little of earth. Go back and find out what these Essenes ate during their earthly lives. Verse 16. The Oahspe hurried back to investigate the food preferences of the Essenes. In time they returned, saying, Verse 17. These Essenes, while in their physical forms, ate fish and worms. How can we bring them the atmospheric essence of these things? Verse 18. God said, You gathered the atmosphere of trees and plants. Why can't you gather the atmospherian part of fish and worms? Verse 19. The Oahspe explained, We observed that trees and plants emit delightful atmospheres, but fish and worms emit foul-smelling odors, which are the sweat and dead substances evaporating. What should we do? Verse 20. God instructed them, Go to the places where mortals kill and eat fish and worms. When the mortals are tearing them with their teeth, snatch the atmospherian essence and give it to the Essenes. Gradually, teach them to subsist on other foods. Verse 21. God reminded the Oahspe that what mortals eat on earth influences what their spirits need for sustenance in heaven. The Oahspe then departed. Verse 22. 3 days later, Jehovah spoke to God, saying, Verse 23. My son, the Oahspe have acted thoughtlessly. They went to the fisheries and followed your command, gathering food for the Essenes. But the Essenes said, We are strong enough now to gather food for ourselves. And the Oahspe agreed. So the Essenes took the atmospherian part of raw flesh from the hands of mortals, feasting on it. Now they have attached themselves to the fishermen and fisherwomen, and will not leave. Send skilled deliverers quickly to save these Essenes. Verse 24. God summoned the skilled deliverers and sent them to the fisheries to free the Essenes. Verse 25, Jehovah then said, I have created a ceaseless harvest from trees, fruits, flowers, grains, seeds, and roots, to sustain the spirits of the newly born in heaven. But those who feast on flesh on earth will not find spiritual food in heaven. They will return to the butcheries and feast on the atmospherian essence before the flesh rots. Be cautious, or they will attach themselves to mortals and be led to destruction. Verse 26, After many days, the Oahspes returned to God, saying, The physicians severed the attachments, and we brought the Essenes away. But shall we spend all our time providing clothes and food for them? The more we do for them, the less they do for themselves. Verse 27, Jehovah spoke through God, saying, I provided a nurse for the newborn, but once grown, I command them to provide for themselves, so they may become a glory in my kingdom. Charity alone will not raise them up. You must teach them to raise themselves, for that is where the glory of manhood lies. Verse 28, the Oahspes replied, If we leave them alone, they will return to the fisheries and attach themselves to mortals, doing nothing but eating. Verse 29, God instructed, Near the fisheries, build a colony in Atmospheria. Take the Essenes there, but do not show them the way to the fisheries. In the colony, put them to work weaving, making clothes, and producing goods. You will continue to bring food from the fisheries daily, but only give it to those who work or to the sick and helpless. This will inspire them to labor, which is essential for the growth of the spirit. In time, they will not only care for themselves, but will help others, which is the beginning of the second resurrection. Verse 30, You have learned that the diet and habits of mortals on earth dictate what their spirits need when they enter heaven. Verse 31, Select enough people from your own ranks to create a delightful colony. It should have food, clothing, nurseries, hospitals, places of worship, and places for dancing. Welcome as many Essenes as can be delivered from earth, and raise them in industry, virtue, wisdom, joy, love, and benevolence. This will be a new heaven for you all. Verse 32, You are my chosen, and this colony will be an example for all the kingdoms I will build in my heaven. Soon, countless millions of angels will be born out of the earth, and they will fill the atmosphere around it. Verse 33, Work swiftly. People are rapidly ascending from earth into heaven. Every colony you found now will grow into a great kingdom, requiring experienced workers. Those who work most efficiently for Jehovah will be promoted to larger tasks. Verse 34, You are like one of the cornerstones of Sethantes, whose house will encompass Atmospheria and the entire earth. Words of war are already taking root among mortals, and for tens of thousands of years, war will reign might against might, darkness against darkness. Hundreds of millions will be slain in these wars, and their souls will be cast into chaos. Just as you saw these spirits attaching themselves to mortals for food, so will countless spirits in chaos attach themselves to battlefields, still fighting, or to mortals, driving them to madness and death.